Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. I'm Tom Halleck. The town of Plattsburgh has approved the construction of a new factory here at the site of the former Clinton County Airport. The state is planning to build the plant in the spring that Norsk Titanium, a Norwegian company, will then lease to manufacture aerospace components using these large-scale 3D printers. Norsk is planning to create nearly 500 new jobs. The $125 million to build the plant was included in this year's state budget, and the project is moving ahead, despite Governor Cuomo ordering the Empire State Development Corporation to take over all of SUNY Polytechnic Institute's upstate development projects, including the Norsk factory in Plattsburgh. The move comes after Alain Kayoleros resigned as SUNY Poly's president after he was charged with rigging bids to steer state contracts to favored developers. The scandal has raised many questions about SUNY's involvement in economic development. Chancellor Nancy Zimpher will join us shortly to talk about that and how the state is trying to address a looming teacher shortage.
I'm thrilled to be here.
How to deal with that crisis is what brought the Chancellor and State Education Commissioner Mary Ellen Elia to the SUNY Plattsburgh campus a few weeks ago, where they met with a gathering of faculty, students, and administrators from several SUNY schools in northern New York. The Chancellor and Commissioner have been traveling the state for the past several months, getting feedback on a new initiative called Teach New York, which aims to develop ways to recruit a new generation of teachers to replace the baby boomers ready to retire and others leaving the teaching profession.
Lifting up the profession of teaching has to be everybody's job, everybody's interest. We have clothed this initiative in the blanket of teacher shortage, which we're learning in the North Country has begun already. We're not waiting till 2022 when we think it's really going to hit big time. It's here now. We think we do need a lot of work in lifting up the clinical practice of teaching.
The profession has come under fire in recent years with education reform. Teachers are being held more accountable for student performance and face more scrutiny with teacher evaluations and getting certification. Enrollment in teaching programs at SUNY is down 40% since 2009. And joining us now is SUNY Chancellor Nancy Zimpher. Welcome, nice to see you.
Thank you, good to be here.
How severe is this teacher shortage in New York?
Well, we think it comes down to about 1,700 teachers between now and 2022. Across the country, about 1.6 million teacher vacancies. We haven't had this for a while. People couldn't get jobs, but the boomers are retiring. And they're retiring at a rate faster than we can fill it. And also, people are stepping back from enrolling in our teacher education programs. About a 40% drop in enrollment at these great institutions like SUNY Plattsburgh, SUNY Potsdam. So we've got to do several things about this shortage. We've got to lift up the profession. We've got to recruit at an earlier age. We've got to incentivize the career as a teacher so that you can grow to be a teacher leader. And that's pretty much what this Teach New York initiative is all about.
Why do you think the lack of interest?
Well, we've been hearing from teachers, we've been listening all over the state, and one of the things they say is that people are on their case. People are not happy. So they sort of become the target of criticism about the performance of schools, and it's not, as we all know, totally on their backs, but they feel endangered. Second, they feel overworked and stressed over standards and high-stakes testing. They just don't feel as good about the honorable profession of teaching as I think we say we used to feel. And we know that in every other successful country, teachers are honored, highest honor. We got to get back to that. And so one of the things we're doing, working with Commissioner Mary Ellen Elia and this whole Teach New York initiative, is to actually lead a campaign to lift up the profession of teaching, to make the teachers who are there now feel good about their job, and then have them tell younger people in the pipeline, you got to want to do this job. This is great, but we're not there.
Is one way you do that pay them more?
Well, I think people like to start with pay, but I'll tell you, when we interview these teachers, they get to pay about at the last minute. Not that it's not important, and we have had spokespersons for better pay, the teachers' unions for one. They talk about respect, time to work with other teachers, good professional development, and a career lattice, might I say. Not a ladder that steps on somebody else and you step over them, but different ways that you can be rewarded as a career professional teacher. That's what they want.
And you mentioned standards and testing. Obviously, very controversial in New York with Common Core. Did a number of them cite that specifically for their reason either to get out of teaching or not go in?
Well, I think they want more input into the standards, and that is being provided under the new leadership of Mary Ellen Elia. Everything's out there for review right now. I think they want to have a reasonable approach to teacher evaluation. The way I would say it is a hard and fast line that students are either performing or not does not reflect how important a teacher is in the growth of a student. If you can show growth, then no matter where the student starts, I moved the dial for them, because some students start way underprepared. And is that your fault? But if you can grow them and move them out, so I'm hoping that we'll find the sweet spot to how you connect the teacher's work to the student's performance in a thoughtful way.
And you talked about recruiting at an earlier age. Now do you start recruiting when they're in their later high school years or even their first couple of years of college? And how much earlier will you recruit now?
Well, you remember FFA and FTA, Future Teachers of America. That always used to be a club in high school. It kind of went away. So I think we need what people call teaching academies in some of our high schools to say this is a place where you can come and think about teaching as a career. But honestly, we heard the Chancellor of the New York City Department of Education say, I'm working on middle schoolers. So I guess you can't start too early.
And as you look ahead, do you see the shortage being more severe in the city, or do you see it in rural areas like here in the North Country?
Well, having spent the day in the North Country, I can tell you that this shortage isn't waiting till 2022. It is upon us right now. They cannot fill the teacher roles that they desperately need. So we can't wait for a middle schooler here in the North Country. We have got to double down on students in their senior year of high school. I think it's too late, but we're in a crisis right now. I suspect we need to do a better job of recruiting people from other fields and then giving them a timely way to get certified. You take an adult who's been an engineer or in the military, they might not be able to stop out and go 2 years to the local baccalaureate institution. Maybe they need some online training. Maybe they need some intensive summer preparation. So one of the things we're talking about is how many different pathways can you create to, we don't want to just take people off the street. That's unfair to the sophistication of a great teacher. They're trained. We weren't born that way. There's training, just like a doctor, just like a lawyer. But if we're in a crisis, we need to make that easy to do.
You mentioned you're here with the commissioner, visiting Plattsburgh State, talking to students, talking to alumni, talking to faculty there. Did you hear from school administrators? Are they feeling this crisis already? Are they having trouble filling positions now?
Well, what I did was meet with the North Country Thrive, which is a collaborative effort of many, and there were a half dozen superintendents there, and that's the story I'm telling. They cannot find the teachers they need. So it's now. And what we're going to do, we're working with the Department of Labor. We want to double down to the region of our 10 economic development regions and say exactly not only how many teachers are needed, but what we've missed too is what fields. I mean, early childhood needs more teachers, more certified teachers. English as a second language, special education, the STEM fields. And we're overproducing, frankly, it's on us. We're overproducing in some areas where we have plenty of teachers. Maybe elementary ed, general would be one of those examples.
And the listening tour that you're on with the commissioner, what are you going to do with those suggestions that you hear?
Well, two things, actually. We have SUNY CUNY, the independent colleges, all prepare teachers. SUNY happens to prepare about 5,000 a year. We need to look inside our organization to policies that will improve the process. So we expect to take to the SUNY Board of Trustees by June several enabling policies that are just customized to SUNY. Mary Ellen Elia, as Commissioner of State Ed, plans to take to the Board of Regents some policy. They do regulation. We need some regulatory relief. We also need some improved regulations. And then we met with 22 stakeholders from across the state. We're calling a statewide Teach New York roundtable. This is everybody from the teachers union to the principals to the superintendent's group. You know, everybody has a trade association. We had them all at the table. The 22 of us are being charged with getting some policy out the door that might inform the governor's state of the state or the executive budget, and certainly what the legislature is going to push this year. So we want to take these ideas, this sentiment, this growing need to lift up the profession and put it in statewide policy.
The largest teachers union in New York State, the New York State United Teachers, opposes the plan. Why do you think the union doesn't believe this will work?
Well, the union is at the table, I am thrilled to say. So the president of NYSET, the president of the United Federation of Teachers, which is the city, the president of the University Faculty Union, they're all at the table and represented. I feel like what happened in May 18th, when we announced all this, is a little confusion about, yeah, we had an advisory council, we got 64 ideas and recommendations, but we weren't taking them to the bank. We're just putting them out there. This phase two, is to say to people like our union leaders, which of these recommendations can you support? And then build consensus support. So I think it's like Cool Hand Luke. I think we had a little communication problem.
Will it be difficult, though, for this program to be effective if you don't have buy-in from the unions, the teachers' unions?
I think it's totally impossible. But I wouldn't call them out if we can't get our universities, if we can't get our parents. The parents are at the table. If we can't get our superintendents. If I didn't have Mary Ellen Elia. I mean, it takes a village, I guess you would say. And what I think is true is there are going to be things that we're going to have an easier time getting consensus and agreement on. We're going to have some things that we're miles apart on and maybe need a little mediation to find the sweet spot, but that's life in the policy arena. But you know what? If you don't have those people at the table, you can't go anywhere.
SUNY has been in the news. SUNY Polytechnic Institute, the CEO, Alain Kayoleros, has been charged with corruption. What was your reaction when you heard that he was facing charges?
Well, I think our reaction was an immediate step in the direction of putting him on unpaid leave, which has ultimately transitioned into his resignation. We have every intent to be cooperative to the federal and state investigations. You would expect that, and of course we are. But we also are looking at our own policies and practices. We're doing everything we can to solve the puzzle, if you will, of how this could have happened.
And are there a number of questions about how this could happen without anyone knowing?
There are plenty of questions, trust me. What we need are answers, and that's where we're working, really, literally, night and day.
What impact has it had on students?
I'm glad you asked about that, because what we have to do is stabilize SUNY Poly, first and foremost for the students. Second, for the faculty who are doing research and entrepreneurship and innovation. And third, which is very important to the North Country, keep those projects going. I know there's a lot of concern that the fallout of this might be that things slow down or disappear. Our goal in working with Empire State Development is to keep New York open for business.
And obviously in the North Country, a huge project before all this broke, Norsk Titanium coming in, a state-of-the-art factory that's going to melt titanium into aerospace components. SUNY Poly and the legislature providing $125 million, 500 jobs. The company hopes to have the factory built and open by the end of the next year. Does anyone step back, though, and question whether SUNY Poly should be so involved in generating economic development?
Well, I think part of the debate that we've been reading in the media is who is in charge of economic development for the state of New York, and I think the governor has been pretty clear about that, Empire State Development. But we all feed that. Look at Startup New York. I mean, 80% of our campuses are licensed, if you will, to bring businesses on campus, and that's a really good thing. So while we would expect the governor and the Empire State Development to lead economic development for New York, you probably know that 7 years ago, the power of SUNY was hatched, and a big part of the power of SUNY was to help build back the economic viability of this state. So we own a part of this too, and frankly, I think we can be good partners.